Let me take this opportunity to welcome you again to this webinar by AU IBA. And today I'm privileged to have five distinguished ladies with me today. I would have complained that there is no man in this conversation, but the conversation is about women in agribusiness, and I will be glad to be with you. So let's look again at for those who are joining us via our social media platforms. Let's look at the bios of these women to find out why they deserve to sit and have this conversation with us.
Dr. Sarah Osia is a Ugandan national and currently the project officer with the Pan-African support to AU IBA for sustainable development for livestock for livelihood in Africa, African Women in Animal Resource Farming and Agribusiness Secretariat, and African Apiculture Platform Secretariats. These projects fall under the African Union Inter-African Bureau for Animal Resource AU IBA, a technical office of the Department of Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy and Environment, and funded by the European Union. Her training, career focus and passion has been on animal production, pasture agronomy and the livelihood of Africa's pastoral communities. She has undertaken postgraduate training of these aspects in Australia and the US. She has since become renowned in her field of advocacy, resource mobilizer, and policymaker who genuinely advances the interest of pastoral communities, particularly women, and ensure strategies are developed to recognize, conserve, and effectively transform pastoral resources, livestock, land, indigenous knowledge, and other community resources into valuable economic assets for developing Africa's volatile but expanding livestock value chains. Dr. Osia has spearheaded the development and the implementation of several continental programs to transform the bee industry, fisheries and aquaculture, and currently livelihoods of livestock producers in a present position within the African Union Intra-Bureau of Animal Resource located in Nairobi. Ms. Jacqueline Gowe is the founder and CEO of Sweet Maungwe Honey, a graduate of King's College London in the Hati fraternity. The company was registered in 2014 as a honey producer and processor. Jackie has won several recognition awards, such as the 2014 Api Expo Africa as the top accolade for overall best honey processor, and Paka Silver Prize at the Zimbabwe International Trade Fair in 2017 in the SME sector, and the 2019 top prize for products diversification for women in agriculture. Sweet Maungwe, a role model in apiculture sector, has expanded its operation through contract farming with rural communities. Currently, the company has over 1,000 farmers under the scheme, trained small-scale farmers in beekeeping, value addition of honey, and byproducts, which are wax, propolis, and currently 15 value-added products such as floor polish, shoe polish, hand creams, guava strips, candles, honey strips, with ginger, just to name but a few. Ms. Gowe has been instrumental in the formation of the Zimbabwe Apiculture Platform, which she chairs and has been mandated by the government to be the lead organization in the apiculture sector. She is also the executive committee member for the Bee Project at the African Union Intra-Africa Bureau for Animal Resources, a member of the Committee for African Organization for Standardization, a continental body which advises member states on various standards of products, and vice chair of the Zimbabwe Standards Association Technical Committee for Apiculture. In 2019, Ms. Gowe was appointed the chairperson for Africa Women in Beekeeping, a continental organization championing knowledge sharing, market development among ladies in beekeeping. Jackie is the active member of the Our Fund and is currently working with the African Union in the acceleration process of the Zimbabwe Our Fund N chapter. Beatrice Kamau was born in Kenya and has lived in Chicago for over 20 years. She works as a full-time nurse and she is involved in part-time farming and beekeeping. Her company, Multiple Harvest LLC, grows vegetables that are popular among the African migrants and is also involved in beekeeping. She is involved in urban farming and beekeeping in Chicago, in the USA Middle West area. Beatrice is currently the founding member of the African Women in Beekeeping. This group has been in existence since 2019 and currently has over 150 members from various African countries and the diaspora. The aim of the group is to equip women with apiculture knowledge and a networking platform. As a result of the platform, women have been able to form new friendships, share information and resources, and also support each other. Mavis Nduchwa is the founder and CEO of the Kalahari Honey, a honey aggregator for Botswana, whose mission is to build sustainable communities using bees. Founded in 2015, the company uses beekeeping as a tool to mitigate human and wildlife conflict by training and supplying rural farmers with beehives. Kalahari creates jobs for more than 500 families and counting. Mavis is also a former BBC Food Chain 2019 judge, UN SDG We Empower Awardee 2020, 2020 African Business Hero, and is a recipient of more than 9 other awards. Prior to forming Kalahari Honey, Mavis worked in various safari camp sectors, including the world-renowned award-winning Mombo Camp in the Okavango Delta, Botswana. With over 15 years experience in conservation, hospitality industry, and agriculture, her focus is now on organic symbiosis. Pauline Otile Kamwara is from Kenya and has a long track in management of modern beekeeping activities and training in modern beekeeping, honey processing, and record of proving herself as a business manager, and comes to you as a seasoned professional apiculturist who can demonstrate a strong working knowledge of a business operations in the beekeeping industry. For the last 1 year, she has been running apiculture venture as a managing director, and in this role, she is primarily responsible for developing close working relationship with various beekeeping, training team, and project management team, coupled with ability to plan, lead and organize, and she is working towards long-term participation with private institutions, NGOs, and government institutions that will work towards growth of beekeeping industry. Passionate about beekeeping and honey production, she has set up a program where the youth can take up beekeeping as an income-generating activity under the program Inspire New Generation, Save Bees and Save Nature.
Well, that is it. Those are my panelists for today, and I'll take this opportunity again to welcome all of you to this webinar. And our conversation today will be women in agribusiness and why women has changed in the apiculture development. Maybe my first question will go to Dr. Sarah Osinya. Dr. Sarah, please tell us why it was important for us to have this conversation today.
Thank you very much, Philip. And I want to, first of all, congratulate the ladies. I know at least 2 of them very well. I know Beatrice from being a member of the AWIB WhatsApp group, which has been really a passionate group, a group of women who share their experiences and their learning, who bring excellent expertise into the group. And for me, it's really women taking an initiative forward. I want also to start by just congratulating all the beekeepers and everybody in the apiculture sector on the World Bee Day. I was very privileged to actually represent the African Union, to represent the commissioner at the very first World Bee Day, which took place in Slovenia. It was an excellent occasion. We had representatives at Deputy Prime Minister level from all the European Union countries. And we had the European Union Commissioner who is in charge of agriculture. We had the Director General of FAO at the same meeting as the President launched the World Bee Day. I want to start by congratulating Slovenian beekeepers who pushed for World Bee Day. I congratulate Apimondia. I congratulate our Apimondia office in Africa. I congratulate ApiTrade Africa. But most of all, I want to congratulate 2 groups of people. The African Apiculture Platform, which we helped to establish as AU-IBA, but which is driven by the members from across the whole of Africa. We helped to establish at least 35 national agriculture platforms, and they have been in the lead and these are multi-sector. So there's public sector, there's private sector, there's actors from across the value chain. I want to congratulate all of them for celebrating this day and for taking the lead to do activities and to showcase very powerfully that the apiculture sector is an important economic and development sector. And I think that is why we're here to celebrate that this is a sector that is extremely important. We will share some of the information around the world. This sector in around 2016 was worth 200 and around 205 or 216, I have to remember, was worth over $217 billion just for the pollination alone. So this sector contributes tremendously to our lives, to the livelihoods of millions of people across Africa, to our food and nutrition security, and it deserves much more recognition. It deserves support. It deserves investment. And the backbone of this sector, as with many other sectors, is women and youth. And in fact, we want to have more women and more youth participating in it. There's so much to celebrate.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sarah. What I'll do next is give the rest of the ladies an opportunity, at least to tell us a little bit how they got into this particular field. We know farming is not an easy thing. And when you talk about bees again, it's a whole ball game. Why did these ladies decide that apiculture is what they want to do? And I will start with Jacqueline Gowe. Please tell us a little bit about your experiences and how you got into apiculture.
Thank you very much, firstly to AU-IBA for giving me the privilege of being part of this very important conversation that we're going to have today. Mine, to be honest, was an accident. My father died and left us a farm, and because we all lived abroad, nobody really wanted to do any activities because we had other commitments. But having come home for his funeral, I then spoke to an uncle who said, well, you could put some beehives, at least the farm will be productive in that way. So I started off with 5 beehives as a hobby and realized at the end of the year that the bees were thriving and I could do something out of it. So fast forward a few years later, I had to come home. I then realized the various markets that are available in the apiculture sector, and with a lot of research and attending various conferences, I saw the prospects in apiculture. So I certainly leapfrogged from the health fraternity straight into being a farmer, which was a wide gap but very interesting journey. So and now I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And
okay, let me move to maybe in the meantime, I think maybe Jack is experiencing some technical problems. Let me move to Beatrice. Beatrice, also tell us the experiences and how you got yourself in this apiculture industry.
Thank you so much, Philip, for giving me this opportunity. And my experience into apiculture is out of curiosity. So what happened is I live in Chicago, Illinois. I've been working in Chicago as a nurse for over so many years. And I saw this advertisement. It was on the local newspaper, and it was like, oh, there's a beekeeping workshop. Anybody can come and, join. And so I was like, oh, who would be crazy enough to do beekeeping, especially in an urban setting? So I decided to go, and I signed up. And, when I went in there, I was expecting like maybe 50 or more people in the room. But when I got there, I was the first person to arrive. And I was like, oh, so So I waited a little bit, and when it was time to start, the meeting started, and it was only 5 of us who signed up. And when we started the meeting, they asked, so why are you here? What interest do you have in beekeeping? But I felt relaxed because the other 5 people who are in there, their story was curiosity too. They were like, oh, I'm interested. I saw the advert and I would like to know more about beekeeping. So that was in 2017. That's when I attended that workshop, and it was just like a beginning beekeeping workshop. And once I finished that workshop, I felt like I was asking the participants, are you scared of being stung by bees? I was like, oh my God, I want to do beekeeping, but the sting part is the part that I am not ready to experience. Yeah, but then I felt I was not ready, and I took another workshop that is more advanced. It was like a four-hour workshop, and once I took that workshop, I met somebody at the workshop, and this person told me, "Oh, have you been into beekeeping?" I said no, and then he said, "I can help you. I've been doing beekeeping for 5 years. So if you want, you can come and then we work together. I can walk you into the process." So from there, I learned to volunteer, like, to volunteer my time. I am the one who needs the knowledge. So I would work with a couple of beekeepers. When it's time to check their hives, I would go with them and check and learn. And then I would go and do the same in my hives. So that is how I got into it. And currently, I am one of the instructors of beekeeping in the farm that I work as part-time, as my part-time job, my side gig. So that is how I got started. So it was just out of curiosity. And I have come to love it. And I can't imagine doing anything else. It's opening me to opportunities that I never thought existed, because who would be doing beekeeping? Most immigrants, when they come to when they leave Africa and go to various countries, they're always looking for white collar jobs. But here I am, doing some dirty work, doing farming and doing beekeeping. And it's kind of different, and it kind of stands out, but I love it. And I want people to know that there are opportunities. This field is very relaxing. It gives you that time off your busy schedule, and it makes you learn how to focus and be calm and take your time. You cannot rush when you're doing beekeeping. You know what will happen. It has happened to me a couple of times. So this is a field that will teach you. Bees will teach you something. I look at bees as our ancestors. They have been here before us, and they know what we don't know. So we are just following their way. So that is my experience.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. They usually say curiosity kills the cat, but not in this case. Your curiosity has become your hobby. Let me move to Pauline. Pauline, tell us a little bit about also your experiences and how you landed into the apiculture field.
Did we lose Pauline?
Pauline, can you hear me?
I think we lost her.
Seems she has also dropped off. Maybe I come to you back to you, Dr. Sarah. In the meantime, you talked about yesterday being the World Bee Day. Maybe you can tell us a little bit, why did the United Nations decided to pick a day of the year and decided that this will be the World Bee Day? Why not the cows? Why not all these other animals? Why the bee?
Thank you very much. I think this has come from observing the massive loss of bee populations in some of the continents, across some of the continents. In fact, Africa is the only continent that has survived some of the bee diseases that have ravaged huge populations, huge bee populations in Europe, and in America and other areas, other regions of the world, they have suffered very high loss of bee populations. In fact, one study showed that should Egypt have had, for example, just to give us an understanding, if Egypt had had the same kind of loss, it would have lost about 3.5% of its GDP annually, if it had suffered the same kind of loss of its bee populations. Around the world, bees are recognized not just for honey, they are recognized more for their pollination services, and not only for pollination of crops, where they pollinate about 2/3 of the crops in the world are pollinated by bees. And most of those are actually our main crops. Food crops, fruits, and vegetables are pollinated by bees. Because of this, the bees are used very much. They are used very much for pollination services. They are the biggest pollinators across the world, and they're used for pollination services around the world. So we recognize that without bees, human beings' lives cannot go on. We need bees to pollinate our foods. We need bees also for food, for nutrition, because a lot of the crops that they pollinate are actually the fruits and the vegetables that we need for nutrition. Recognizing this, there was a need to take serious action to recognize and protect bees. And so there was I think Pauline will give us maybe some more data on that, but there was a resolution passed by UN to protect bees and make sure that, you know, there's laws and people are actually following these laws and regulations in their countries, and also taking action, defined action to protect and conserve bees. Africa has the one biggest advantage that we have never changed the bees. We've never done genetic transformation of our bees. Our bees still sting. This is why our bees still sting. And that is tied to their capacity to also fight other diseases. This was not known before. And this is a quality that has been lost in bees around the world, but Africa still has bees that have these qualities, and therefore they still have the capacity to fight a lot of the diseases. So we have a responsibility, the world has a responsibility actually to conserve and look after Africa's bees. It is also from this perspective, which was way beyond the recognition of bees in World Bees Days, that we had the Bee Health Project at AU IBA, which was from 2013 to 2017. And this was focusing on understanding the health of African bees, understanding the health of African bees, how African bees are responding to the diseases that are decimating bee populations around the world, but also to putting up systems, building capacity around the continent to fight bee diseases, to also look at conservation of bee genetic material. And this takes a very much more expansive view, because to do that, we also had to look at the livelihoods, because those livelihoods now will be the ones that support the bee populations. They support conservation of bees. They support an industry that values bees, an industry that now demands for policy support, demands for regulatory support, demands for investment in the bee sector. And so we looked at that project. That project was set up from that perspective. This project was in coordination with ICIPE, and we worked on bee labs. In one or two results were focused on the bee labs and the whole technical area around bee health. But we also looked at it from the perspective of, are countries aware? Are member states, African Union member states aware? Do they have the policy and regulatory framework to support bee health? So this is how the whole project ran. And I can tell you that we worked with all the countries across Africa, and many countries did not even have a ministry which was in charge of bee health. We did not have a ministry in charge of bees. People did not have awareness. There were countries where people were looking at it as witchcraft. We had those countries that was bad as that. But we also had countries like Ethiopia, Tanzania, which have taken very strong steps to develop their sectors. For Ethiopia, which is the 10th biggest, largest producer of honey in the whole world, bees and apiculture are actually a contributor to the economy. They contribute 1.5% of the GDP. So you can see that it can be an economic sector. So this is a perspective from which we have developed this. I want to thank, and then this I forgot in my list of people to thank. I want to thank our commissioner. I also want to thank the director, AU IBA, our former director, AU IBA, for really, and also to thank Dr. Simplis Rumala, who is head of division of food security at the African Union Commission. These three people have been very instrumental really in pushing that agenda for us to look at bees and to support bee health, but also to support livelihoods, businesses, agribusinesses in the apiculture sector.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sarah. I see Pauline is back. Pauline, maybe you can go back and tell us your story. You are interrupted before.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank AU IBA for inviting me to this to take part in this panel. This is I really appreciate. It's quite a privilege. How did I get into this space of beekeeping? Mine is not by chance. In 2003, I worked for a beekeeping company as an administrator. That time I was.
Maybe let me come back to you, Dr. Sarah. In terms of experiences, how can small and marginalized farmers be linked to production and market systems to enable them also participate fully in the apiculture space?
Okay, I think that question would go better to Jackie because I think she has more experience on that. I'll leave Jackie to answer that question.
Okay. Please, Jackie, the ball has been thrown to you.
Apiculture, like I said before, it's a wide business, if you were to call it that. You can look at honey as a product, which you can value add and add things like nuts, add dried fruit, and it sells. Add ginger, it sells. So for our rural and upcoming farmers in the sector, I would encourage them to try their own innovations and come up with value-added products rather than just selling honey and beeswax. You can come up with a lot of innovations that can actually be more lucrative than just beekeeping and just selling raw honey or processed honey. So for Africa as a whole, I look at there are a variety of opportunities that we can do. Like you find there's more honey in Ethiopia and Tanzania, very little honey in South Africa. With the new dispensation where Africa has free trade, we can look at how can we expand the market as Africa. So I'm looking at an opportunity where Dr. Sarah is going to zero in on the African women in beekeeping and trade. How can we improve our trade relations to enhance our businesses?
And I would like to add to that, Philip.
Please go ahead.
So, yeah, I think also it's important from my experience and what I have seen. Yeah, most of us, when we do beekeeping and in the diaspora or in particular here in the US, in Chicago, we are considered small scale. Like if you have 50 hives and below, you are considered as a hobby beekeeper. And one thing that works out for us, and I think it can also work in small groups in Africa, is having like a processing centers. Like not everyone can afford a processor, you know, in the village. So if you can have like a center where people can bring their honey or their products and sell it to the center, or they can have a community where the beekeepers in one area, they form associations and they meet once in a while. We normally meet like once a month. We meet and we discuss what problems we are experiencing, and this gives an opportunity to purchase equipment at a discount, like, you know, a group discount equipment. So I think that will also be very important. I'll also, you know, I'm looking at the woman in the village. There are equipment that, you know, if you're a large scale beekeeper, there are equipment that you might feel like they're very affordable, they're disposable, but to that woman in the village or man in the village who is doing beekeeping, they only use this equipment once in a while, and it doesn't make any economic sense to purchase the equipment. So the other thing that I'm thinking is to have like a library, you know, like the way we used to borrow books from a library. I remember when I was in Kenya, we used to have a library where we pay a subscription, like a one-time fee, so that if you lose the book, you can the money can be used to refund for the equipment that you're borrowing. So we can use the same concept to have these small tools that these beekeepers really don't need to use on an everyday basis, but they can go and borrow at a library. A library can be even in somebody's house. They can come to my house and borrow the equipment and, you know, leave something, and once they return their equipment, they get their deposit or their security. So this is an easier way to reach out to every beekeeper. And the most important thing for me, I feel, is bringing all these beekeepers in different areas together, so they get to know each other. They get to know what problems each one is experiencing. And that is why I think even the African women in beekeeping, it's very important to expand to villages and, you know, be able to reach out to all these groups. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Lex, because you come from an experiential point of view. How AU-IBA has looked at this problem is the fact that Africa has the highest number and percentage of entrepreneurs in the world. It has the highest number of women who are involved. I think Uganda has the accolade for having the highest number of people entering into businesses, but women are actually driving business. We used to have a model where we are giving out handouts, aid, and we have shifted from aid to looking at how people, because aid can only go so far, you can give to people. But as long as you're just giving to people and not developing their capacities, their abilities to develop their own livelihoods, develop their own businesses, you will always keep on giving aid. And there's a day when that stops. And I think we are seeing that around the world, that donors do not want to give money anymore. We have to learn to take our own destinies into our hands and to build business around them. One of the African Development Bank reports says that we have a $42 billion gap for businesses, for women financing across Africa, of which 15.6% billion within the agriculture sector alone. And it tells you that women are looking for money to finance their businesses, to grow businesses. But however, the way that our governments and our institutions look at it these days is that they focus on women having no collateral, women having no business acumen, women not having the skills. So women are always put down and not looked at as business, investment worthy. So what we have done is we have looked at apiculture from two directions, and apiculture business growth from two directions. One, from looking at how we can get a business environment, develop a business environment, and that is to really have awareness creation within our countries, to have institutional support, to have policy and regulatory support for the sector. And this has grown. Some countries have taken it serious.
Jacqueline.
Sorry, some countries have taken it
Let me
serious.
go back to Pauline.
Oh dear. Can you hear me now? Oh, you didn't hear anything I said before?
Yes, we can hear
We
you.
heard. We can hear you very clearly.
We can hear you.
Yes, so I was saying that, so we looked at it from a policy framework, and this we worked with the member states. And that is how we set up the national apiculture platforms, which are multi-stakeholder platforms. And these platforms are the ones that looked at policy issues, but also the legal framework, the regulatory framework, and also just developing capacity. So we trained a lot of people. We had training of trainers. We had assistance to a lot of groups, physical assistance, yeah, to a lot of groups to just build that capacity. On the other hand, I'm very pleased to say we also have the African Women in Animal Resources Farming and Agribusiness Network. And this is a network that recognizes that unless women come together, there is no way that they can address their own issues. And they can have a voice that says that women need to be supported. And not just be supported with aid, not be supported as second-class citizens, but to develop businesses and to grow those businesses. And this is what we have been focused on, to support those women, to have those women recognized within all the different countries. And our strategy is not just to create associations. However, it is to create associations, develop strategies and business plans, and also to look for partnerships. And now we are in talks with the Trade and Development Bank. We also want to talk with and engage African Development Bank and other development banks. We've had some discussions with Islamic Development Bank. All of these banks give a priority to women and youth. And we feel that this is an avenue that we can use to support women really to grow businesses. I thank the ladies who are here very much, because they were chosen to be part of this discussion, because they have not just grown their own businesses, but they have sat down and said, if I can do this, then other women around me can also do this. And I think this is what Beatrice was saying, that is not just for me, but how can I help other women understand and be confident and grow a business?
Thank you very much, Dr. Sarah, for that presentation. I see Pauline was back. Pauline, you said you've gone to Plan B and now you're using your phone. Please.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so as I was saying, so in 2013, I came back to the country, and there was this need to develop beekeeping with women and youth. So I worked up to 2018, and I started Apiculture Venture. Apiculture Venture, I think it's the first owned woman company, beekeeping in Kenya. And here we are doing serious production. I produce beekeeping and honey processing equipment. I actually have a factory that I do that. And I've been able, one of my greatest joy is that I've been able to employ women and youth in this particular sector. And like Beatrice said about urban beekeeping, along Mombasa Road, I have an apiary with 10 beehives that I train people with. At the same time, I'm able to reach out to other women. Currently, I'm working with about 2,500 farmers, about 60% being women, and the rest youth and men. And just being able to demystify that it's not only old people that can do beekeeping, but also young people and women as well. I've been able to demonstrate this just by also having signed contracts with companies that I'm able to offer pollination services, whereby I come in with bees and offer pollination to different farms. At the same time, offering markets to smallholder farmers, women groups, youth groups, and cooperatives, and offering them ready market for their produce, which includes honey, pollen, propolis. All this is a great joy for me, given that I'm a woman who was also challenged in one way or another. How can a woman do beekeeping? And more so a young woman. By that time, I was below 40. And that was quite a big challenge for me. But I took it up, and it's been now, I'm starting my 4th year, and the journey cannot get any better. Just to inspire more women to be able to take up beekeeping. And wherever I as Beatrice said, the beekeeping is so relaxing. Wherever I go in my beehive, that's one of the most relaxing things in my activities. I know you find it strange, Philip, but it's quite relaxing to deal with bees. And if you chance to visit my office, you will see I have a whole beehive in my office operating and producing honey. So this is something that I love doing, I enjoy doing. And being in AWIB, African Women in Beekeeping, it's quite a privilege because you also learn from ladies like Jacqueline, from Sarah, from Beatrice. We exchange ideas. We help other women, given that we have the experience and the knowledge in the industry. We are helping many more other women, not only to produce honey, but also to come up with other products, beekeeping products. We are doing lotions, we are doing cosmetics, natural products made from bees and what. So it's quite an exciting journey that I hope many women can take up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pauline. But I would want to stay with you a little bit. Sarah mentioned that African women really need opportunities, these opportunities. We know most of our mothers out there in the village. We live in a patriarchal society. How can we empower those women back in rural areas to have opportunities like the one you have?
It is possible, and what I'm doing in my own little way is to go out and train women. Nobody pays me for this. I do it for free. So once I establish a beekeeping group that is really in need, I go out of my way and talk to them about modern beekeeping. I offer market for them, for those who are already doing. And one thing that I've come to realize, we cannot separate traditional beekeeping and modern beekeeping. So there are women who are already practicing beekeeping in a traditional way. I came to find out they have knowledge about the flowering plant in that locality, about handling of bees in the traditional way without killing them. And if we incorporate these two and we work together, then we are building a strong colony, we are building a market for them, and we're also building quality brands among ourselves. So by going to communities, as Beatrice had mentioned, setting up processing center, this is one thing I'm really advocating for, especially with organizations that are giving donor funding to women. They shouldn't just give this donor funding for beekeeping, but what they need to do is set up processing centers that will help different categories of people in one locality. When these centers are created, they're able to control the quality, they're able to share resources, because as Beatrice rightly put it, you cannot afford to buy a semi-processing unit going for around 40,000 to use it once or twice in a year. No. So from these centers, we are able to collect honey, verify the quality, share trainers or extension officers who can visit different women, maybe one extension officer per 10 women. And so this enables them to grow their industries, to grow their apiaries, to produce more honey in a more quality honey, so that it can be accepted locally and also in international markets. So yes, we are supporting these women by going to these various processing centers, training them, offering quality equipment, and at the same time buying the honey.
Thank you very much. Jacqueline, let me come to you. And one of the issues that has been coming up in the recent days is that we are losing a lot of our bees. You as a player in the apiculture sector, are you not worried that you are going to lose your business if this trend is not reversed or tamed?
Thank you. I wouldn't be concerned because there is a way of preserving bees. Africa has natural habitats where bees have been flourishing. What I find and what I would recommend Africa to do is to preserve our natural forests, our natural vegetation. A lot of the losses of colonies have been in Europe, where mostly the beekeepers are also using chemicals to deal with things like varroa mite and all the other pests that the bees encountering. we have natural ways of preserving and controlling these diseases. I think I would be one to forge for us to maintain our natural habitat, to try and find natural remedies to Varroa. I know ICP has developed something for Varroa. Why not do a step further and look at something that can help deal with issues like the hive beetles? America and Europe have American foulbrood, which is suddenly crept into Africa. Why not look at ways of controlling it before it becomes a pandemic? So I wouldn't be so concerned because in the southern region of Africa, we've not really seen a huge colony loss, but more of climate change,
Yes.
mitigation measures that need to be taken care of, because with the change in rain patterns, the change in global warming, that has been an effect on our honey production and not on the population of bees. I hope I was clear.
Yes, you've been very clear. I don't know if is
Okay.
any of the panelists want to add on that.
I can say something. What we have done at AU IBA is take a holistic look. And like I said, we had the Bee Health Project. And for us, it was important to drive the agenda to have a more structured apiculture sector, one that is recognized, one that is supported with policy, institutional frameworks, and regulatory frameworks to come from the point of other regions are losing their bees. Do we understand the situation in Africa? We did two assessments over 2 different years across all the African countries, and we saw that some of these diseases are affecting bees around the world are already in Africa, and they're affecting bees in Africa. However, the effect is different because of the genetic quality of our bees, like I have already said. But we feel that this is not for us now to sit down on our hands and say, okay, our bees are not succumbing like other bees. We have gone ahead to integrate bee health into our animal health strategies for Africa, and even into our animal welfare strategies for Africa, to also integrate systems for addressing bee health across all the countries. So all the countries are actually supposed to monitor bee health. They're also supposed to build capacity for bee health monitoring. And I tell you, I was part of going around to some of the countries. We went to beekeepers, and sometimes you'd say, do you ever see your bees having any diseases? And people say, no, we don't see diseases. And because people were doing some at night, so you're opening your hives at night, and you never know that your bees get sick. And for some people, it was a real epiphany, as a real coming to understanding that bees also have diseases and they need to be monitored, and you need to document, and you need to report. So far, we have very few countries reporting. I think so far only 2 countries report. And yet we have about 5 or 6 diseases that are supposed to be reported when you see them. I think it's only Eswatini and Tunisia or Morocco that are right now reporting on bee diseases consistently. And this is for us a goal as part of AU IBA, that countries must put into place robust systems, robust capacity. They must build the capacity of their beekeepers to understand and also to report on diseases. This comes also from the perspective, I think, that many people have not understood the value of bees. They've not understood the value of bees. And we did a small comparison. For example, we did a very small comparison. We looked at, for example, the value of honey on the market. And this is not all honey. This is just a percentage of honey that reaches the market. And it was valued at 4.8 billion US dollars in 2007. In 2007, and by 2016, it was a $7 billion market. By the way, honey is more expensive than fuel, isn't it? It's actually gold. It's more expensive than fuel. It's more expensive than any fluid. You know, any fluid is more expensive than honey. I don't think it's more expensive than milk. It's more expensive than, you get more money out of honey. And you cannot get an alternative for honey. It is a premium product. It's a premium product. In comparison, so $7 billion market in 2016 honey. In comparison, tea, which has far much more structured and committed government support. The market for tea, the global market for tea in 2016 was 14.4 billion. Can you see the opportunity that honey has? Honey has no structure. They have no real support, real legal policy and institutional regulatory support. And yet it has an organic mechanism by which people are producing honey and putting it out on the market. And compare that to the tea industry, which has so much support, and that market was 14.4. So half the market for tea without the kind of support tea gets. There is much opportunity to develop this market. By the way, Africa is a net importer of honey. And the way we see it, with lifestyle diseases now overtaking, lifestyle diseases, obesity, heart problem, diabetes, all these diseases, even COVID, I'm telling you, we have drunk honey, we have eaten honey in this period. And people's understanding of health and immunity has really gone up because of COVID. And we cannot expect that we're not going to have other pandemics again. Just because of that, I can tell you there is a huge market for honey. And Africa is a net importer. We need to organize ourselves. We need to organize our countries. We need to understand that this is a possible economic sector, and we need to organize it. And we need to also look at all the support facilities like health systems that need to go into place. So for us, as African Union, we know and we understand, and we are grateful that because we have good quality genetic material, right now it's not a problem, but there's possibility, and we need to be looking for it. And as Jackie said, with changes in environment, you start to see stresses on agriculture sector, and we need to address that from a framework, a legal, policy, legal, and institutional.
To add to that, what both Dr. Sarah and Pauline have said, I think it's also important especially for Africans in the diaspora, when you are thinking about buying land, there is a lot of land being cleared of the native pollinators so that you can purchase, you can see a beautiful land that you can purchase. So I think we Africans in the diaspora, we need to insist that, this land is beautiful, but, when you're clearing land, leave something for the bees. Maybe leave a strip of pollinator or native plants in the land so that the land is not just bare. Because once you clear the land, you are exposing the soil, you are messing up the soil infrastructure, and it's going to affect the chances of growing plants that are pollinators. Remember, for the bee health, it needs, for the bees to flourish, they need the pollen and the nectar, and those two must be available. And also when it comes to monocropping, this is the other area that I think we need to pay attention to, because now we are kind of going, most people are kind of trying to industrialize and plant one crop in a big area. So that is a good thing, but also when you think about bee health, you can have a strip of pollinators, just a strip of flowers in the middle of your monocrop or your single crop, because remember, for the bee to be healthy, it needs to get pollen, different kind of pollen. There are over 20 amino acids that are found in honey. So it is also important to pay attention to that, so that, you know, we are not just clearing all the land, or we are not just concentrating on one type of plant. Let's encourage the community to take care of our soil, take care of our native plants. The native plants will always come back because they belong to that area. They're not going to have that diseases or all these types. So let's encourage them to stick to these native plants in their areas, and this will help in the bee health and what the bees is consuming. And that's how we will end up with quality honey.
Yes, I'd like to just build on that. You know, the problem with the agriculture sector, or the biggest challenge with the agriculture sector, is that despite the fact that bees contribute tremendously to pollination of our crop, there is a big tension between the crops that are suitable for bees to make their food, and the crops that are grown as monocultures, and the whole issue of pesticides. And this is a huge really challenge for the apiculture sector, because where you have the pesticides, there has to be a balance between understanding the bee production cycles and also the crop production cycles. And this is a big conflict issue. However, in 2005, we had 200 bees contributed a value to crop production of 217 billion, and that was in 2005, which amounted to 9.5% of the value of crop production globally. That was in 2015. The pesticide industry was worth 48 billion in 2017. See the difference. See the difference. For us, we think that there has to be legal frameworks, and we have worked on these frameworks. Countries have adopted but not fully sophisticated, not fully implemented some of those frameworks to ensure that pesticides are not killing bees. And there are ways to do this. There are ways to balance that equation, to have both the bees and have them healthy, but at the same time to use pesticides properly. So we have that framework that was developed with member states. I think you heard Jackie say she was in standards, she's in the standards group, and so on and so forth. We've had countries help us, work with us to develop that kind of framework, but it is not implemented. It is not implemented. We are pushing for a position where apiculture, beekeeping, pollination services are recognized as part of the big five for the crop sector. So you would have pollination, pesticides, quality seed, water. I think there's a fifth one, fertilizer. Imagine the agrochemical industry in 2020, in last year, was about 250 billion. But the contribution of pollination in 2005 was 217 billion. It is much more today. We need to understand this. We need to understand that bees are accessible to anybody and anyone in anywhere. And we also need to understand that bees take care of not only crops, but also fodder that is needed by animals, but also our biodiversity. Some of the things that we're seeing happening in our environment are because we've neglected biodiversity. We've neglected our biodiversity. We do not longer have water, grasslands covering many areas. There's runoff. That is why we have flooding in many areas. We don't have rain permeating the ground. When you have crops, grasslands, you have rainfall, but it permeates into the grasslands, and then it does water recycling, into underground water instead of runoff. And all of these things are the positions that we need to take as African countries to understand what are the role of the apiculture sector, what's the role of beekeeping in maintaining healthy biodiversity and healthy environments. And this is something that all countries really have to take cognizance of.
About us not conserving our biodiversity, the use of chemicals. Do you think as a continent, we don't have enough regulations to protect the bee. I think that the bee is one of the most important insects to our lives.
We do have the regulation, which has been drafted for the apiculture sector. We actually sat down, I remember a couple of years ago, and drafted policies that were supposedly disseminated to member states to then adopt, especially focusing on pesticides and bees. But the job then remains to member states to adopt those policies and use them effectively in the sector. So what I really appreciate is the work that AUIBA has done to set national platforms. It is now our responsibilities as sector players to then speak to government and say, look, this is what was drafted. Can it be implemented? Because a lot of these things are left in files and not put into practice. So yes, there is enough knowledge and policies around, but what lacks is implementation, in my opinion.
Let me go to Beatrice, because Beatrice is coming from a different continent as we speak, for her to give us examples of the protection that the bee is given out in the US. Maybe Beatrice, you can tell us a little bit about, do you also face the same challenges that these ladies are talking about that the African continent is facing?
Yes, I would say that the problems are the same all over the world, because I'm sure Africa, they go through challenges as far as, you know, the diseases of the that affect bees. They go through the same problem with plants and, you know, extinction of native plants. So I think this is the problems are the same all over the world, in the US and also in Africa. Yeah, the problems are the same, and the approach of solving the problem is also a challenge too. You know, as the US is more, you know, developed as far as technology and all that, but it's also a challenge too, because it's very necessary, very required for the beekeepers to always register their bees with the local governments, so that if there is a disease going on, they know where they can go look, and they can inquire from the beekeepers, or have you noticed this on your hives, or, you know, or stuff like that. So the coordination between the beekeeper and the local government is also very important. The coordination between the beekeeper and the beekeeping department in every country is important. That's how you are able to keep count of how many hives are in the country, how much honey is being you know, produced. So the problems as far as the bee diseases, it might be in our area we have more of varroa mite than in other areas. And also it depends, like I have my beehives in 2 different locations. And I remember last year, one of the hives was highly infested by hive beetles. And the other hive in a different area in the same city there was no hive beetles at all. So it really depends on the location. And the most important thing, it always go back to the beekeeper. No matter where you are, no matter what challenges you're going through, it is your responsibility to take care of your hive. You cannot delegate the responsibility to somebody else. If you are paying somebody to take care of your bees, they are waiting for that paycheck at the end of the day, and they will tell you, oh yeah, I checked the hive and this is what happens. Let's use the technology. If somebody tells you they checked the hive, they have a camera on their phone. Let them take a picture and show you what is going on in the hive. And women, don't give this job to somebody else. I have seen people say, oh, I have 50 hives and 15 of them are colonized. What do I do with the others? Why are they not colonized? You should be telling us the reason, because you are taking care of your hives. So you need to be there. It is not a remote control, business. You need to be there and take care of your hives. You need to check your hives at least 2 times every 2 weeks. And then once you feel that they are healthy, you can go back to checking 1 time a week. And checking is like opening the hive and looking at what is going on. So the challenges are the same, but the responsibility falls back to the beekeeper. Thank you.
Let me remain with you, Beatrice, a little bit. What about the use of pesticides in the US? Is it a regulated? Regulated than what we see out here?
The use of pesticide is, I would say, that is a kind of a balance. There is discouragement of use of pesticides, and that is something that you cannot really control, because like for me in an urban setting, I have my beehives in this location. And then if you walk maybe 1 mile or 1 kilometer, my neighbor is taking care of their lush, beautiful lawn, spraying chemicals to kill dandelion and all those and using herbicides. So this is something that I cannot control. Remember, there are some pesticides, when they are sprayed, they will float in the air for a long time until it rains. Maybe something brings them down. So a pesticide can be sprayed and it will be in the air for 3 days. And it is just floating and going to different areas. And it might land on the petals of a plant. And you remember, the bee will come and try to get the nectar for this plant. So bees will travel 5 miles from their location. So even if you try your best in your area to take care of your hive, you don't have control of that person who lives 3 miles from you. So it really comes back to the individual and, the importance of knowledge, spreading the word and making people understand the reason why. Why is it important not to use pesticides? Why is it important to take care of your hives? Why is it important to be careful about, all this spraying that, people are doing now to protect? What are the alternatives apart of that we can do to eradicate the herbicides and all these plants that we want to take care or to remove from our areas? So yeah, I think that's that's very important for us to take care of our hives and also to educate the people around us. This will help eradicate the problem. The pesticide issue and the diseases, they are just all over, and the different communities are trying to educate and and inform other people, and especially those who are not beekeepers, because they are doing something to make a living. So it's just important to spread the word and share.
Philip, I want to...
We need to look at the importance of bees in the environment and place them at the top of the food value chain. We know the importance of
please
bees.
Continue.
We know the importance of bees in the ecosystem and the role they play in pollination. So if the bee was to be swiped out on the face of the earth, how many years do human beings have to live? Probably 4 years. And that is the reason why we as Apiculture Venture, we are advocating for saving bees and saving nature.
Philip,
so it's clearly important for the preservation of bees in the... It's important for each and every one of us and to preserve the bees in the environment, because we need the ecological balance in the environment. And we know the role that the bees play in this environment. And as Beatrice had said, you are clearing land. What are you leaving for the bees? Are we leaving foragers for the bees? So it's very important for us to continue planting many flowering plants within our farms, be it in the urban or in the rural. We need to provide our bees more foragers within our farms. And then there's a question there in question and answer. Somebody was asking which kind of crops can we plant for our bees. Yesterday during the World Bee Day, there was a point that there are some good producing nectar plants that are actually being wiped out. Like it's called the mukuka. I don't know the scientific name. That is a challenge to us as farmers and beekeepers. What are we going to do to preserve some of these nectar producing plants from being wiped out? So it's very important for us to be able to provide forage in terms of nectar and pollen producing plants for the bees. Because without the bees, definitely we are facing starvation, not only in Kenya, but in the rest of the world. So it starts with me and you, it starts with Dr. Sarah, it starts with Jackie, it starts with Philip and Pauline to plant at least flowers in our gardens.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pauline. Let me go to Jacqueline. Jacqueline, we've not really talked about the use of technology when it comes to the apiculture sector. What kind of technology do you think the African continent or the world needs to embrace in this sector to ensure that we also be able to produce, as Dr. Sarah said, this sector is very huge economically. So what kind of technology we need to embrace to be able to produce enough honey for trade?
I'll start off with production. Our biggest challenge currently is types of beehives we are using. Across Africa, we're using a lot of what I would call our traditional beehives, which we find difficulty in inspecting. So we need to move on and say to ourselves, the Kenya Toba hive or the Langstroth hive is giving me better production to the traditional one. Can I then transit and use the Kenya Toba hive and have a better yield? I know it's very difficult in some of the communities we work with to embrace modern technology, but I think we need to take them on that journey where production versus traditional methods in terms of the quality of honey we need. So we need to upscale in terms of the types of hives we're using. We also need to upscale in terms of the equipment we're using to process our honey. I know in some areas in Zimbabwe, a solar wax extractor is being used to process honey. No one has any figures on the amount of heat the solar wax extractor is introducing honey. Therefore, some of the honey, when it goes for testing, is being called a syrup because all the nutritional value has been lost by the excessive heat used the solar wax extractor. So Africa needs to embrace modern technology to increase production and to improve quality of products that we are marketing. Thank you.
Can I add something, Philip?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, that's a very good question you've asked in terms of technology as far as agriculture is concerned. Jackie has alluded to one aspect of it, which is equipment that is being used. There's a challenge with, if you will have good equipment and the handling process is wrong, then again, the quality of the honey is messed up. So it's up to stakeholders in the industry, as you give farmers this equipment, are we training them on how the proper use? I've harvested proper honey from Langstroth, but then I've extracted it in the wrong way. The quality is then compromised at this stage. User technology comes in. Are we using the right extraction equipment, the current equipment that is in the market? And then again, it comes after I have harvested, I've processed, how am I packaging this honey? Technology again comes in. Which technological equipment are we using to ensure that this honey is packed in a most hygienic and safe way, the right containers? That's another challenge that we see outside here. And then above all is storage. Which technology are we using? What have we adapted to ensure that
this honey is stored in an environment where the moisture is right, so that it preserves its right quality. I know there's an organization, again, it's a woman-led, AHC, it's African Honey Consortium, that is coming up with traceability systems, technology again coming into play. And this goes back to the beehive. They're introducing this, it's called ApiTrace system. They're introducing this technology to farmers. They're yet to roll it out, I guess, in Africa, but they're introducing it in the pilot phases so that you can trace the origin of this and you can trace the kind of pesticides that these bees are bringing into the beehive. So technology is quite key in the sustainability of the apiculture today in Africa as a whole. And I think this is something AU IBA can take up and just follow up. What are we doing in terms of technology, right from the beehive traceability up to the packaging and being released into the market? Can this honey that I have in my workshop now be traced back to where it was harvested? Can the pollen type where the bees, can the nectar type or the plant type where the bees forage from, can it be traced from the honey that I have? And this is a challenge to me as an entrepreneur in the apiculture sector, to work also with tech savvy people in the industry, because it is the next frontier, technology in beekeeping.
Yes. Can I add something to this, Philip? Philip, if you look historically, honey is one of the oldest products that has stayed. It has stayed as it is. This is because of the bees, yeah. So, but honey, you can trace it back to the bee kings. They used to call themselves bee kings in Egypt. Misnomer. All these the bees that are producing honey are female, yeah? The drones have their role, but they are not the ones producing the honey. Anyway, so technology should have been something that should have grown. And right now we should really have world-class technology around beekeeping. With honey, it has a different problem. For example, to milk. With honey, the raw product is not changed, is not transformed. It is refined. You refine it, you handle it properly, and you have a quality product. So the handling becomes extremely important. And this is an area, as Pauline says, we really do need to work on. I know only one country, and forgive me if other countries are doing the same. I know only one country that has degree level courses on beekeeping, and that's Tanzania. In Tanzania, they have a law that you cannot be an extension person without a degree out of, I think, the University of Dar es Salaam. You have to have a degree to be an extension person supporting the bee sector. So they have degree courses, they have master's level, they have graduate courses, they have PhD level. At their undergraduate level, they insist that everybody must run a business and they must do innovation around that business. And that is world-class development of capacity to innovate, to build technology around a sector. And that is what Africa needs. It needs capacity at high level, at institutional level, at education, at tertiary level. But we also need to have a curriculum right from primary school level for people to understand bees. The first thing when you see a bee, what do? Swat it, kill it, do something about it. And we do not understand what a bee is. And also we do not understand, many people don't understand how to handle honey. And like I said, honey really is from the raw product. You do not transform it. You handle it well to maintain its quality. You don't even refine it, I think. You refine it to remove impurities, but the honey itself does not go under any transformation. So technology is very important in the apiculture sector. And for me, we urge countries around Africa to look at this as an economic sector, as a sector for livelihoods, and therefore to include it, mainstream it within our education curriculums, right from primary to nursery, but right through to tertiary level. Take an example from Tanzania.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. Let me go to Beatrice. Tell us a little bit about technology, especially the kind of technology you're using in the US. Say that to the kind of hives you use, the kind of, what can we learn from you?
Okay, so you was cutting up, but I think I understood your question. You would like me to talk about the technology that is being used in a beekeeping industry. And I would say that the technology that I have seen being used here is a wide range. It's just like an explosion. There is so much. Jackie will let you know that when we met in Canada during the Apimodia meeting, they had all those equipments, and you just walk from one side of the building to the other side, looking at all these new innovations and people working so hard to come up with new innovations. So a couple of weeks ago, I attended a beekeeping workshop, and one of the presenters was talking about this small technology that you can put in your hive and connect it to your phone, and it will be able to measure the temperature of your hive. And I thought it was a very cool equipment, because once you put it there and the temperature is so high, that means something is going on with your hive. Maybe they are queenless, so they are moving around a lot, or maybe there is the temperature inside is too much, or maybe they are about to swarm, something. When bees are doing okay, they are calm. When you open the hive, you'll see them, they're just moving, they are calm, But once something is not right, or when they are queenless, they will be, moving around, and the sound inside will be zzz. It will be too high, and they will be coming all over your face. So that is the kind of bees that I deal with. I know in Africa they might be different, but their technology is a wide range, and it's from all over, from the hive, from the queen making equipment to the hive. I have seen all these different type of hives, and I've always wanted to own some of them. So the technology is so high, and the important thing right now here, I would say that do not be discouraged into getting into beekeeping, because there's some technology you can do without. I can tell you for sure that I have 3 types of knives. One is electric, for extracting my honey, and another one is kind of a scratcher. And I just discovered the other day I can just use the knife for cutting bread to just slice over to slice open the time when I'm harvesting. I can use my regular kitchen stuff. So when you're thinking about technology, try not to go beyond, because there is so much out there. You might end up investing in stuff that you don't even need. And that is why coming together and looking at equipment and meeting and having these kind of meetings, and the associations in your area, talking about all this technology and visiting each other. If I come to visit Pauline and see the kind of equipment she's using, I might be able to say, oh, this equipment, I'm not an industrial, I'm not a large scale, I'm not commercial. So I might not need the kind of equipment she's using. But maybe there's another storage tank that she's using that might be applicable to me. So that is why it is important for us to visit each other, to share knowledge. Feel free, to put a video out there of what you are doing, so that the other women can see what you're doing. And that's, the main purpose of having the African Women in Beekeeping group, so that we are able to share and we see what is practical and what is not. But the technology is just out there, and the innovation is like day to day. People are innovating new stuff.
Beatrice has brought up a very good issue in terms of education. How can we, or how can the ladies in this panel help the ladies out there in Africa get as much information as you've been able to get over the years? What do we need to use? We need, what kind of technologies or mediums do we need to use to reach to all the women in Africa to pass this information?
Okay, one of the things that we are doing at AU IBA, and this is with Patricia, our knowledge management specialist, expert, senior knowledge management officer, Patricia. We are setting up communities of practice. We're really very excited. Community of practice will be one that women can access via the computers, but also ultimately we want to do it via phone. So you can access it via phone, and it will give a platform where women can exchange information. They can also reposit information. They can put up events and all sorts of things. So you can actually share across, because information is power. And I think access to that information, specific information, is what women need. What I've noticed on the platform that Beatrice and Jackie founded, it's amazing. I look at this platform and I'm amazed at the detail and the amount of information that is shared. However, on WhatsApp, you do not archive. So if you come after, you cannot access information that was there before. But with community of practice, the way that it is set up, it archives, and you can now look out for that information. It also helps to you can sort out that information. You can do all sorts of things. Even you can have a marketplace. So we're building onto it a marketplace. And the marketplace is not only to sell honey, but to sell information, to sell opportunities, to say who has this, who knows who. It's a database of information, all of that. So we're trying to do it as a knowledge management platform so that people can come together and share knowledge, information, understanding, and exchange all sorts of things, also resources and opportunities.
Can I answer?
Yes, please.
Okay, in AUI, but that's a wonderful platform that we really like to engage in. But in my local level, what I'm doing, I've established a small resource center. This resource center, I'm equipping it with traditional equipment to modern, where we were with beekeeping to where we are right now, collecting researches and data that has been done by various individuals, and also collecting books. And more so, I'm concentrating on African bees, because you find most of the information as African women in beekeeping, as beekeepers, we are relying much more on the European method of keeping bees, forgetting how our bees will react to some of this equipment. Because I've come to realize there are areas where collecting books, so if you have books, if you have research that have been conducted, newspaper articles, journals, I'm collecting all this, and then eventually I will digitalize them. But as of now, this resource center, it's not complete, but it's work in progress. And I invite anybody who would like to even just donate a book or anything that will help the people to come and learn. And this resource center, I intend it to be free. It will even be open to children. They can visit. Sarah alluded, are we teaching our children about beekeeping when they are young? So mine is actually to inspire a new generation to come into beekeeping and look at it as from entrepreneurial point of view, as a business model, not just as a side business or as a hustle. So that is what I'm doing in my small capacity, and eventually hope to open each and every resource center in each and every county. And I believe as a woman that this is doable.
Yeah, and I would like to add to that when it comes to this, it's also very important to share this knowledge in different languages. So it's important to find out how can we reach these French speakers or Swahili speakers or all these major languages where we have the people practicing. Is it practical to give them like a printed and laminated thing so that when they go out in the hive and it drops on the dirt or on water, it will still be good? Or I know we have the technology of the phone, but I don't know. For me, I'm still old school. I would like to have something printed. And when I go out there, I want to be able to see something because I have so much information on my phone. Sometimes I can't even keep up, you know. It gets full and I don't know what is full. What is in my phone? It's full of what? So, but if I have something that is on a printed uh, format and something that I really understand, it's going to make sense. And also the last thing I would like to say is it's also very important to preserve the stories of our older beekeepers. There are beekeepers who have been doing beekeeping for over 100 years old, 100 years, and they know how to do things that we don't know. Because remember, every beekeeping is local. The way I do my beekeeping might be different from the way you do yours. And the impact that I have in my community might be different in yours. So there are those stories that it's very important for us to preserve. And I'm sure if we look around, we'll be able to get people who are willing to fund these storytellers and, you know, let them tell their story in their language, in whatever language they speak, and have like a caption at the bottom, like an interpretation, so that we can be able to keep this for future generations.
Okay, I think this is a problem that the bee sector has to face, like every other sector. It's a problem that all the sectors have to face. And I think we mentioned it. We said it has an effect. Of course, with the climate change, it has an effect on the quality of crops that bees need. It has an effect on the bees themselves directly. It has an effect on the bees themselves directly. It has an effect on the beekeepers. I think we cannot ignore it. It also calls for us now to look at the damage that has been done to our environments and to also see what is the role of bees in addressing some of the damage that has been done already in our environments. A lot of this, as I said before, is linked to biodiversity. Which is a key pillar of the health of our environments. And we need to we are doing many things, how we're doing many things, especially in the crop sector. But even in the livestock sector, how we are handling it, how we are handling issues of infrastructure, especially large-scale infrastructure. We see a lot of large-scale infrastructure has problems. We know many countries have flooding in cities because of the way their infrastructure is handled. And that has an effect on the environment. It has an effect on the crops that bees need for their food. So I think it's all joined up. The bee sector, apiculture sector, is a natural resource-based sector. And therefore, for this sector, it must depend on the environment, and it must depend on the quality of the environment. I think if the ladies can tell us, but I am very sure that even the quality of your honey can actually give you a clue of the quality of the environment. This is why Pauline was talking about traceability, and it has become a more and more important point that people need to know, where did your honey come from? What kind of environment did it come from? Did it come from a healthy environment or environment which has pollutants? Did it come from an environment where bees are stressed? And all of this shows in the quality of your honey. I think for bees, we have to be at the forefront, really. For the apiculture sector, has to be at the forefront of looking at issues around climate change and to being part of the solution. I think this is one of the biggest things that we need to understand about the apiculture sector, that the apiculture sector has a number of solutions that it can offer to crop production, for increased production, but also quality. So if you have a tomato, if it's pollinated, you have a much better quality tomato, much better fruit than pollinated. We are part of the solution. It's also part of the solution for biodiversity, for health, for environmental health. So I think the agriculture sector cannot be excluded from the conversation, but also the realities, but also the conversation to provide solutions to the dilemma that we find ourselves right now, and for which our children, our descendants, also will face the same dilemma. So the agriculture sector has to be part of the center of providing these solutions.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Pauline, please.
Okay. As rightly put, apiculture and global warming cannot be put apart. Apiculture has a key role to help in climate change. There's a very good article that was done by SNV about beekeeping and climate change, and it was so clear: bees and trees are a solution to global warming. And some of the points that it articulated quite well was, we go back to planting native bee-loving species. Which are some of these trees that we can plant, and at the same time, they give us an income, they give us a food, and help in climate, in preservation of global warming. Some of them they mentioned were trees like avocado species. Avocado fully depends on bee pollination. So we need to go back to planting some of these trees. Acacia, we are looking at the eucalyptus. Are we planting trees? I'm a direct consumer of timber. What am I doing as a beehive manufacturer in terms of planting trees? Do we participate in tree planting activities? I go back to my first point. Are we partnering with other institutions? I might not be an expert in tree planting, but a consumer in tree species. I'm a consumer. So if I partner with institutions like Carefree, Caro, people who are good in identifying these plant species, then we can help in global warming. And the basic thing that I tell people, bees and trees go together. So we should get more involved as the apiculture platform, as African women in beekeeping, in tree planting. We should create more awareness, even in our children, in our localities. How can we plant more trees? Because if we plant more trees, then we are conserving the environment, and at the same time helping in or giving a solution to global warming. So activities that we can engage in is probably to lobby for climate-friendly mitigation measures. What are some of these mitigation measures that are environmental friendly? Things like helping in creating erosion controls within our farms, the farms that are neighboring us, the beekeepers that you're working with. How are we helping in controlling erosion? And the use of technology has also led to global warming. What are we doing in terms of the technology that we are adapting to help to make our life easy or to produce more honey? Are this technology that we are adapting having an influence to our environment? Is it causing to global warming? So these are questions that we need to ask ourselves as individuals, and also to the farmers that we work with, and this will help in the mitigation of global warming.
Thank you very much, Pauline. Jacqueline, quickly, we are running out of time.
Yes, mine is a simple one. We need serious adoption of bees in national policies to preserve bees. So our ministries of environment, our ministries of agriculture, ministries of youth and women's affairs to adopt beekeeping as a national strategy in mitigating climate change. Thank you.
Very good. Excellent.
Okay. My closing remarks, I would urge women to continue standing up for the bees. We should continue lobbying our governments to have relevance in national policy and strategy, to not be scared of bee stings. It's a free antibiotic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. Pauline, less than a minute.
My closing remark is let's get more queens into the hive. Let's be more active into the beekeeping, because bees are our friends. They give us three things that I love. They give us income, they give us food, and it's medicine. The amount of honey we've sold during this COVID time, it's just at another level. So yes, let's get involved in beekeeping. Let's conserve our environment, and let's get engaged in the beekeeping as a theme of our World Bee Day. Yes, it was yesterday. Be engaged in modern beekeeping.
Thank you very much. Beatrice, I'll give you less than a minute.
Okay, my closing remark will be, I would just like to thank AU IBA for giving us this opportunity. And I would like to encourage Africans in the diaspora to come back to Africa and help build Africa in different sectors. And also the last thing is, we need your honey in America. Tell us how we can get it. We need Africa honey in all the supermarkets. So we are looking forward to engaging in that. And when we go to the supermarket, we want to see Africa.
Thank you very much. Dr. Sarah, you will be our last panelist to give us the closing remarks and close this session.
These ladies are totally engaged. That's what I can tell you. They have been engaged with bees, and they're engaged, and I can tell you they're going far. I know ladies who have built their businesses until they can now be Mercedes-Benz dealers. We should never underestimate women of Africa. The women of Africa make me absolutely proud. And you can see just from the three ladies here who have spoken, ladies who will take something and nurture it and craft it and grow it. However, that said, the opportunity and the gap is huge. Most of our honey comes from outside. We haven't even started to understand pollination. It's the ladies here are doing pollination, but you can see that the opportunity to do pollination services is tremendous and untapped in Africa. One of our most perennial challenges across African continent is not just food security, but nutritive food. You can see Pauline, what she says. She's made big money because everybody's alert and trying to fight COVID by using immunity, building your immunity. But we have many more nutritive gaps across Africa for children, for women, for families. And this is a sector that can contribute to that. This is a sector that can contribute to healthy environments. So I want to urge our governments to work very strongly with agriculture sector, work with women and youth in particular, to really build this sector, to build it not just from business side or not just from policy side, but we want good investment. We want appropriate investment. We want investment that will put this sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sarah. Indeed, the future of apiculture is in good hands, and I'm very impressed by the women that we've had this conversation with today. I'm even challenging myself. I'm going to get 2 beehives as soon as we get out of here, and I'm going to start the venture. For those who have been following this conversation on our social media platforms, we want also to say thank you very much for being part of this. Your questions that you posted on our chat, the panelists will still have time to look at them and respond to you. And we also want to say thank you very much to AU IBA in partnership with the Standard Group for providing us with this platform to have this conversation. And I wish we could have it more often. But for now, we've run out of time. And I want to say again, thank you very much. Until next time.